Have you ever wondered if personal finance experts follow their own advice? No? Okay, good, because you shouldn't be thinking about us like that. But have you ever wondered what would happen if you break away from the usual traditional financial rules of thumb? Well, today I'm here to spit some truth. I want to let you all into some of my financial decisions that I have made this year that could be considered risky, unconventional, or even bad decisions, depending on who you're asking. Specifically, I'm going to share 5 things that I have done differently this year. These are not my usual way of operating, nor are they things that I recommend, but I'm going to get to that in the video. The truth is, personal finance is never going to be perfect. Like, life is gonna life, and sometimes you just gotta take an unconventional route to get to where you're trying to go. I truly think that we are bound to make decisions that aren't by the book. That is, unless you are a complete rule follower and you are just perfect with your finances, in which case this doesn't apply to you. But if you have ever questioned a financial decision that you've made, if you've ever felt guilty or embarrassed about doing something wrong or different from what all of the experts are saying, then this video is for you. The key takeaway is this. This is what you should walk away with. It is that if your goal is to reduce your financial stress, then there are 2 things that you want to do with your financial decisions. Number 1, be strategic, and number 2, be comfortable with your decisions. If you can do those 2 things, you are strategic, you think your decisions through, and then you're comfortable with them, everything else is going to follow. I'll touch more on that throughout the video. For those new here, hello and welcome. My name is Lissa. I'm a personal finance expert, an accredited financial counselor, and the co-host of NetNet Podcast. This is my new podcast where me and my best friend talk about different facets of life, and we talk about the hidden costs to help you navigate every financial decision in life. So definitely check that out and let me know what you think. All right, disclaimer, before we jump into the video and I share with you those 5 unconventional decisions that I have made this year in regards to my money and finances, I want to remind you, like I said earlier, that this is not how I normally operate. And it is not what I recommend to you or anyone else. Everything in personal finance is going to depend on your own personal situation. That's why it's personal finance. So this is a reminder that this video is me sharing my experiences. I want to share them to be open and transparent, and it's for informational and educational purposes. This is not financial advice. In fact, I'm saying do not do these things unless obviously it fits for your situation, but I can't tell you that. I really just want to be open so that you guys can see that personal finance is not perfect, nor are personal finance experts and people who are good with money. There are going to be ups and downs in life. There will be tough decisions that you're going to have to make. Sometimes those financial decisions won't pan out for you, but hopefully, majority of the time, they will, and hopefully you get to your expected outcomes. Like I said, if you can make financial decisions strategically and that you're comfortable with, everything else will kind of fall into place. So enough of that, let's jump into that list. Here are 5 unconventional money decisions I have made this year so far in 2024. Number 1, this is a good one. Don't judge me for it, but I carried over a balance on a credit card. In fact, I still have that balance on that card right now. So for context, the typical standard personal finance advice that experts pretty much agree on is that you shouldn't carry a balance on a credit card because after all, credit card interest is considered to be high interest. It is debt, and it means that when you put purchases on a card, you don't pay it in full. You're actually paying more for that thing that you purchased because of the interest. So I completely agree with personal finance experts. I agree with that 100%. You want to stay out of consumer debt, such as credit card debt, as much as you can. For most people, it's within your control. All that said, let's talk about why I did it. Why do I have debt on my credit card? For me, it was a strategic move. So my partner and I are selling our place right now, And in the lead up to listing our house on the market, our realtor did some extensive market research, and it showed that having an upgraded kitchen and a couple of other upgrades around the house would not only help our place sell faster, but there was a huge chance, like I'm talking about like 99% chance, that it would result in at least a 200% return. So what I mean by that is, all right, we're gonna spend $20,000 in renovations, and that $20,000 is more likely than not gonna bring us back at least $50,000, if not more. So 20,000 times 2, 40,000, and I'm saying that it's probably going to bring back more. Now, all of this is speculation. We don't actually know that that's going to happen, but when we gathered all of the facts, we looked at the information, we felt confident in that decision. Now, let's get into why we decided to put it on a credit card. Obviously, credit card debt has relatively high interest, and we knew that we would accumulate some interest on the debt while waiting for the house to sell / paying down this debt over time. At this point, you're probably thinking like, well, why didn't you guys use another option? There are so many other places and other ways that you can borrow money for less interest than a credit card. For example, personal loans and HELOCs, home equity lines of credit, usually have lower interest rates than credit cards. Or why not open a new credit card that might offer 0% interest? So you're right here if you're thinking these things, because there are many other directions we could have taken. Quick sidebar, I was actually nervous to make this video because I felt like of all videos, this is me kind of exposing myself in a way, because I preach all day to not carry credit card debt, to have an emergency fund, to save up if you're going to do home renovations. Like, there are things like that that are common rules of thumb, and here I am going against it. But again, like, I'm sharing this with you to share with you the thought process behind it, and also my situation is probably different than yours. I'll get to it later in the video, but there are other reasons that we made this decision for our particular situation. So anyway, back to this point. Why did we use credit card debt instead of other types of debt or other options? For us, the biggest thing was the convenience and the flexibility. So I have pretty high limits on all of my credit cards, and I didn't have a balance before. So this was the quickest, easiest, most convenient option for us. So we went with it. We also had a preferred contractor at the time that we wanted to use, and he was available to start the job as soon as possible before he got booked on another one. So we wanted to kick things off, and we obviously had to make a down payment with him. So anyway, we ran the numbers, and it turned out that even if we accounted for interest for a couple of months, we felt confident that the renovations were going to pay for themselves. We're in the middle of the selling process now, so that hasn't actualized, but that is the hope, and we're pretty confident that that's going to happen. On top of all of that, we had other plans on how to get out of the debt, which I'm going to explain later on in the video. So there are lots of reasons why we just felt confident about it and went ahead and did it. All right, number 2, unconventional money decision number 2. I allowed my credit score to drop. Now, this is directly related to number 1. Because I put this kind of large amount on one of my credit cards, it did cause my credit score to drop significantly. So I've always been like a over 800 credit score kind of person. It was one thing that my mom taught me at an early age, was to make all my payments on time and to never miss a payment. So I've always had great credit, and I'm so very blessed and privileged to have learned that part of my personal finances from my mom. But so me always having a very high score, usually above 800, my score dropped lower to mid 700s. I think it even dropped to low 700s at one point in the last couple of months. Did I anticipate this happening? Well, yes. So I knew that it was going to happen because my utilization went up. I think all the other elements of my credit are great. My payment history, my mix of credit, not having any new credit lines. So everything else is great. This one part of it, my utilization, dropped my score. Now, one reason that I was okay with this happening is I am not opening up any new credit lines or taking out any new loans anytime soon. So when it comes to those things, I don't actually need to rely on my credit score, and I just know that I can build it back up pretty easily, especially as I pay down this balance. Interestingly, I will need my credit for something because once we do sell the house, we are planning to rent a place instead of immediately buying again. So that's going to require us to have good credit because usually landlords like to check that. So again, reasons that we weren't worried about this and it's less of a concern is one, my fiance has good credit. And two, we have pretty decent household income and other assets that I do think we'd be able to make the case with a potential landlord that we can make rental payments. I know that's not always the case with apartments, and sometimes they won't accept prepayments, sometimes they won't accept other proof of funds, but that's one side of it. I also think that I have time right now to get my credit back up, and the fact that I have a great payment history on my credit report, it still looks good overall. So if you are in the same exact situation as me, should you allow your score to drop? I mean, no, not intentionally, right? Not if you can prevent it. In my case, the house renovations were something that I wish we could have saved up for in advance, but it was a decision we made after the fact. But we have all these other plans in place to get out of that debt. It's always a good idea to keep building up your credit score and to keep it in a good place, but also know that it is one part of your financial house. It's one part of your foundations. Credit is used for several things, many things in life. So when you understand what it's used for, and if you know your own situation on when you might need it to be good, then that can help you plan for building it up in the case that it does drop or does get affected negatively in some way. So the last point I'll make about my credit is even though I have put a big balance on my credit card and I've allowed my credit score to drop, I sort of knew that we could for sure get out of that hole pretty quickly, which leads me to number 3 on the list. An unconventional money decision or money thing that I did this year was I spent money before I had it. Let me explain. So I had a good hunch that a big windfall of money was coming my way. And because of that, I knew that the credit card debt that I took in number 1 and the hit that I took to my credit score that I mentioned in number 2 on the list, I knew that both of those things had a plan of definitely getting resolved once that windfall hit. Now, usually with a windfall is an unexpected amount of money. Like, let's say it's different from your regular paycheck. It's a bonus. It's a tax refund you didn't expect. It's an inheritance. It's a settlement check. It's some amount of money that you didn't expect that is coming your way, and typically it is a bigger lump sum amount. Usually with windfall money, the rule of thumb is don't pre-spend it, right? Don't spend your money before it gets to you. That applies not just to windfalls, but also like your paycheck, right? You don't want to put things on a credit card this week because you know you're going to get paid next week and you can cover it, at least not for discretionary items. So the same goes for a windfall. You typically shouldn't pre-spend it on all the things, at least wait until it gets to you. Don't pre-spend it, but simply have a plan. So what I personally did that could be considered risky and unconventional was that I took out that 5-figure debt knowing or anticipating that I was going to get the money to pay for it later. The risky part in my situation was, 1, I didn't know when the windfall was coming, and 2, I actually didn't know how much it was going to be. So none of it was 100% sure that it was going to happen, but luckily it did. So I'm not going to bore you with the details, but 3 years ago, I was a pedestrian and I was hit by a car. I was struck by a car. Luckily, I did not break any bones, and I don't believe I have permanent damage, but I did suffer about 3 years of rehab and trying to get back to my, normal state of being. So I did have a case open with a lawyer, and they kept me updated throughout the way. Based on the evidence and the facts that I had in my case, I was completely 100% in the right of way. I was in a crosswalk. It was a walk sign for me. It was a woman just didn't see me, I guess. And that's sort of how the story went. So my lawyers anticipated this case being settled sometime this year. But again, I didn't know the details about how much it would be and when it would happen. I just knew that, okay, in the back of my head, that is probably gonna hit. And so if selling the house takes a while, at least I know that we'll be able to get out of this debt sooner and my credit can bounce back up and I can get out of that credit card debt. So this number 3 that I just talked about in terms of spending money before you get it, it's definitely not something I endorse for people. But again, I'm just sharing my own personal experiences because personal finance, like I said, isn't perfect. I don't like the idea of pre-spending money, like I should wait for it to come. But again, we were on this whole time crunch and there was just so many things riding on these renovations and the sale of the home. Going back to what I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to reduce your financial stress, you have to be strategic, think things through, and you have to be confident about your decisions. So we are 3 down on this list, but so far I'm 3 for 3 on all of these decisions that I have made so far. All right, number 4, unconventional decision number 4, I stopped budgeting for a couple of months. So yes, I am actually a budget coach. I am a YNAB certified coach. That's You Need a Budget. It's a budgeting app. And I teach people not only how to budget and manage their money, but I live and breathe it. And I believe in budgeting and having a plan for your money. I'm a financial counselor and it's what I help people do. So why then would I stop budgeting? Well, for me, it was a few reasons. It was only for a few months and it was during a transition period in my life. As some of you might know, I'm self-employed. I actually run 2 businesses and I'm bootstrapping them right now, meaning I am growing them with my own money without outside funding. Story for another day on whether or not that's the route I should have taken. But anyway, that's where I'm at. So I decided that I was not gonna pay myself for a while so that I could reinvest money into the business to help it grow a bit faster. Then the other end of why I stopped personally budgeting is because of how complicated it got for my partner and I and how we manage our budgets. So this topic is probably going to need its own video, but the quick spiel is this. So my fiance, Alan, and I, we have 3 budgets. He has his budget for his individual accounts and individual spending. I have my budget that covers my individual accounts and my individual spending. And then we have some joint accounts and a joint budget. For us, actually the bulk of our expenses falls into that joint bucket. So the reason that I stopped budgeting was I actually stopped budgeting for my individual budget. I told you guys that I stopped paying myself, so I literally had no income for months and months, but I still had some individual expenses. So I had a talk with Alan and we decided that for the time being, I was gonna start running all of my individual expenses through our joint accounts and our joint budget. So technically I didn't fully stop budgeting because I still manage our joint budget, but the way that it worked in the app we use, which is YNAB, it got a little complicated because I had the app pulling my credit card transactions into my budget and not into the joint budget. And yes, I could have moved things around, but at that time I was like, you know what, like let's do this differently. And it took me a while to sit down and reorganize everything. Now, I don't want you to think that I just gave up on budgeting and tracking money and all of a sudden I just started asking my fiance to pay for every little thing in my life. We actually met several times to go through our finances and we audited every single line item in our expenses to figure out like what things could we change, what things could we move, what things could we pause. And I canceled some things, you guys. Like I put a pause on my expensive ass gym membership. I cut my fun budget a little bit. I reduced the amount of massages that I get, and I put a couple of subscriptions on pause. So I know that I am in a privileged position to be able to do these things with my discretionary income. But again, I'm just trying to explain the who, what, where, when, and why of these money decisions, because on the surface, experts would probably consider them bad decisions, like to just all of a sudden, all right, I'm gonna stop budgeting. But for me, these were strategic decisions and I'm comfortable with them. And so far, everything has worked out okay. Now for this one in particular, I am back to budgeting. I have reset up my YNAB, everything is back in order. I've started paying myself again. So that was a temporary time where I stopped my individual budget and things got a little bit messy on the YNAB side, but the plan was never to ditch budgeting completely. I just did it for a short amount of time. So yes, unconventional especially for a personal finance expert to say, all right, I'm not budgeting. But for me, I had my reasons. All right, before we hit that last item on the list, real quick, if you aren't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you have gotten anything out of this video so far. It really helps out my channel, and as always, I appreciate you guys. All right, last one on the list. I feel like this is a long video. I feel like I've been talking forever. Anyway, number 5, unconventional financial decision. Maybe not everyone will consider this unconventional, but it is for me, which is I have deprioritized some of my health expenses. So I am like, health is number one. Health is the number one thing to me. Now I'm not gonna go like super, super broke for my health, but I will spend some money if I know that it's going to help me mentally, physically, emotionally, if it's gonna help my health. So kind of in relation to me cutting my income, I had to make some decisions on what to cut. So I mentioned earlier in the video that I cut some of my discretionary spend, some of my TV subscriptions, and some other things. But I actually deprioritized things like my gym membership. I didn't mention this yet, but I was going to acupuncture on a weekly basis because I am working towards some fertility and IVF related things, but I actually took a pause, not a complete pause on that, but I started going every other week to slash that budget in half just for the time being. And I also stopped taking these Chinese herbs that I was taking, again, for fertility related reasons and my hormonal imbalance. And that's usually not something that I would do on a regular basis because health is the most important thing to me. But for these couple of months, it was kind of like low-hanging fruit, at least in my opinion, of, all right, I can cut these temporarily. It's going to free up some cash flow, and it's going to get me through these months where I'm not paying myself. So I don't think everyone's going to think this one is unconventional because some people already naturally deprioritize health expenses. Because why? Because health is freaking expensive. But in my situation, I will say that it is not conventional, and I am gonna go right back into prioritizing health, even if that means spending some money. All right, so that is it for the list. I hope that me talking through these things and explaining my point of view and my reasoning just helps to give you more insight that, personal finance is not perfect. We are all gonna have our own financial decisions to make, and you just gotta be strategic and be confident. Until next time, peace out.